Thank you, Bjorn, and we look forward to the presentation of the white papers later this week. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to introduce our next keynote speakers who champion and lead the sustainability and waste reduction efforts of their respective companies. Our first speaker is John Bradburn. John is the manager of global waste reduction at General Motors, and in this role he leads the company's landfill-free initiative, which has resulted in over 150 operations around the world that reuse, recycle, and convert to energy all waste from daily operations. John is an expert in waste reduction and recycling and is known for devising unconventional uses for everyday waste. And John has been called General Motors' MacGyver. He frequently mentors other companies pursuing zero waste goals, and his responsibilities also include directing General Motors' Design for the Environment program, implementing sustainable processes and technologies that reduce environmental impact and cost. John frequently speaks at various sustainability-focused events and has been recognized by the Society of Automotive Engineers with 4 Environmental Excellence in Transportation Awards for material development and reuse and recycling projects. And in 2015, John received the Presidential Lifetime Service Award from the Office of the President of the United States for Sustainability Services to Youth. Please welcome John Bradburn.
All right, thanks, Paul. How's everybody doing? So I got some stuff to show you. I got my bag here, and this is what I carry with me. My boys got me this for Christmas, and they said, "Here's your new hunting bag, Dad." And I said, "Nah, that's my new computer bag, and this is what I put my stuff in." So my stuff is on this table because this is about, we can get the screen up. Where are we at here? Oh, okay. All right, I see it here. This is what I do for GM. I'm a tree hugger, but I'm a modern tree hugger. There's a difference. I happen to own a couple chainsaws. And if you notice at the base of this tree, it's actually dead. This is a ash tree, and the emerald ash borer, non-indigenous species, came into the United States and probably killed 3,000 of these trees on my farm in Michigan. So this tree went to good use. But I am GM's What Can We Do With This Stuff guy, and I'll have this stuff available downstairs in the Young Engineers, if I'm saying that right, area. So we have some projects that I want to tell you about. I'm going to get into the weeds. You know, sometimes when people talk about circular economy, it's kind of at this level. And I'll talk with a little bit of, philosophy, but then I'm going to work my way down into some specific projects so you kind of understand that. But on a higher level, we talked this morning a little bit about, some of the challenges that our Earth faces today, and what might be some of the greatest sustainability challenges around our world. And a lot of people have said, well, it's climate change. It's, water issues. And those are all very important. But what I like to say is our greatest sustainability challenge is what I call global turbulence. So if you wonder what that means, I think it's a culmination of things. So people that are involved in turbulence around the world are involved in these sort of things. Floods, hurricanes, tsunamis, tornadoes, terrorism, crime, poverty, disease, hunger, and war. But when you put all these things together and you say, well, how can we solve these things? And when we do solve them, it'll be a day that sustains the next, and that's really what it's all about, right? That's why when we look at things that are happening in Mexico, Puerto Rico, the U.S., the Gulf of Mexico, people that are involved in these sort of things, like this picture, that picture's about 20 years old, by the way. Do you think they really care about sustainability? I don't think so. Not when they're going through these tragedies. But isn't it interesting to think about the fact that it is sustainability type projects and programs that can help address some of these issues? You know, in the materials world, which is the world I work in, and many of you at the solid waste area, it's kind of like, I see it, recycling in itself, in traditional sense, is not good enough. Just not good enough. What we really should be doing is trying to figure out what can we do better to make the world a better place with what we do. You know, it's kind of like an artist working in oil or a sculptor working in stone. You know, how do you carve out a future or make an expression to humankind with your medium? And in our case, the medium is materials. Okay? All right. You're looking at a GM plant. It's a foundry in Saginaw, Michigan in the 1960s. This is what it looked like. But if you've seen a picture of this plant today, or drove up to Saginaw, you would see that plant. You'd see all the windows. You'd see just as much processing going on. But it's through things like green chemistry, filtration management for the environment, those sort of things that have made that plant a very clean plant. It's one of the biggest foundries in North America. And again, when we do those things, one day will sustain the next. All right. We've set goals as a company, and those company goals are here. This is our sustainability goals that relate to habitat, renewables, efficiency, carbon, energy, water, VOCs. Total waste is an interesting one, and that is not generating stuff, not generating it. Even if you recycle it, try not to generate it. This is elimination on our hierarchies, you know, that's well advanced. Now, the landfill free, when I'm in charge of that, and the total waste, those two, we hit that goal in 2013. So, you know, that goal is set, and we're doing some benchmarking now to find out where we want to set it. But we've made it clear that we're going to be a zero waste company. Totally zero waste. And our definition is really, really tight. There's one way to get on our list, and that's through me. And that requirement is exactly the same no matter where you're at in the world. If you look at how much material we deal in, it's about 2.5 million metric tons a year. That's how much we recycle and reuse. Just to give you a perspective on that, what that might mean is if you took all the material we recycle and reuse every year and you parked, or you put that material in the back end of Chevy Silverado pickups, just kind of parked them end for end, the line created from all the material recycled and reused every year would wrap around the world. So that's how much stuff that we recycle and reuse. You're looking at, give or take, 10 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent savings. All right, sustainable materials management. That is obviously a term that you're hearing a lot today, and this is how we view it. Design for the environment, that's upfront design. Makes sense, right? A lot of your engineering inputs are extremely important in the design phase to eliminate waste. Global byproduct management, that's about dollars. Beneficial use, that's about taking materials to the next level. Repurposing, but doing it with due diligence in mind and potential liabilities in mind. And I'll give some examples. Circular economy. Circular economy, by the way, has been around a long time, right? For many of you. I think it's just now being recognized, though, as it's a great tool to build jobs, grow economy. Landfill free, zero waste, that's important to keep on the radar because people get it. Everybody feels kind of bad when they set stuff out in their trash bag at the curb every week, right? They would like to know that those materials stay in their use phase. People get it. Everybody experiences it. That's why landfill free and zero waste, we call it the same. It's the same to us, is extremely important. All right, moving along. Design for the environment, a little more detail. I mentioned filtration management for the environment as it relates to the foundry. Packaging aid management, I wrote a specification for all of our caps and plugs and little pieces that go on the vehicle so that when we build it, the threads stay on hold. When we run it through our paint shop so we don't get paint on it, we have a lot of that material. So I wrote a spec to commonize that material and the color so that we could recycle that, and that helps. Container management, we have a specification for packaging. That helps. And so these are design-in type characteristics that we put into our processes so that we end up with materials that we can recycle. Okay? Global byproduct management. This is about bringing all the various groups together. Around 2009, I pitched it to our executive vice presidents, and I said, you know, there's a lot of money out there. Nobody knew. I got the different purchasing groups and the different silos for all this material that's going out of our plants around the world and got their numbers, and our recycling revenues and some savings going back to our foundries came in at about $1.147 billion. So when people say, you know, sometimes that don't pay, well, I'll tell you what, it made a difference for us. And it's gone down since then. It's gone down since then, and that's a good thing. So right now, though, we're doing some projects I'll talk about here relative to byproducts, and that is not just be satisfied with the norm. In other words, don't see things as they are, but see things for what they can become. And I think that's a good lesson in life, too. Okay. I mentioned a little bit about our revenue. We make less money now. We're more efficient. We lightweight our vehicles. And the true goal of what we're trying to make, how much money we're trying to make, is zero. We want to make zero money from our byproducts, and that is because we want to be 100% efficient. We want to consume our materials within our processes. If we do generate them, we want to make some money, and we still do. But the true goal, zero. Okay. Beneficial use process. So we want to take something, for instance, we want to, take a material, and like this. This is a cross-section of an adhesive we used in Bowling Green, Kentucky to glue the Corvette together. A lot of you might not know, but it's a composite material, the body is, and basically you can't weld plastic. So you got to glue it. It's a two-part adhesive. It hardens very, very quickly. And the robot puts it on the vehicle, and then it goes back and purges. Does another vehicle and go back and purges. And this purging builds up, and it's a very cool-looking thing, about that big. I couldn't carry it with me through the airport, so I cut a little section of it, and I brought it in, and we said, it's really about seeing it from a what could it become perspective. When I seen it, I thought, it looks like a stalactite to me. So I got with some of my buddies that do bat conservation work, and we put a couple bats on it and looked pretty good. But the real question is it safe? Are there liability issues here? Is it good for the environment? So we have a beneficial use committee. I used to call our attorney and say, hey, I want to make this out of that. What do you think? Kind of go back and forth, and he'd go, well, yeah, okay, go ahead. Now we got a committee. We look at remediation issues, toxicology issues, industrial hygiene issues, regulatory issues, legal issues, and all those sort of things. And we kind of have this committee, and we come up with these things, and then we go forward with them. That's very important when you go beyond the traditional. Again, it's, recycling cardboard is good. Bale it, sell it, away it goes. Where does it go? A lot of people don't know. But what if you decided, all right, about 10 years ago I said, you know what, I want to make a vehicle part out of our cardboard in our plants. So I got with this company you may have heard of called Federal Mogul. Extremely large company. And we sat down in Detroit at an auto show and said, let's design this out. So I got some pieces here that ended up being in the Buick LaCrosse, Buick Verano headliners of the vehicle. So the question became, what happens to this material? We can now describe it. It's circular. It's bio-based. Oh, it's Second Life bio-based, by the way. Is it safe in the cabin? I think so. Maybe we need to run a test or two. We had to meet the material performance specifications for these things. Post-industrial polyester fibers, too, by the way. And it needed to perform the quietness of the vehicle itself. Here's one. Selling vehicle parts for vehicle parts that have slight dents, dings, and scratches. They are not going to go in the vehicle. We're not going to put them on the vehicle. In the past, we'd put them in a roll-off, and we'd get a couple cents a pound, send them to the foundry, and melt them. Well, what if we decided to sell them as parts through a select dealership program? So I pitched it. They bought it. We're doing it now. The first year, we made $10 million. It's been operational for 10 years, so it's pushing right around $100 million project. I think the question becomes, well, let me put it this way. I think everybody has vision, and I'm not talking about sightly vision, I'm talking about vision to see the possibilities. So the real question is do we see? Do we see the possibilities? Do we see ways to make things better, to develop jobs? And this puts 17 new people in all of our assembly plants. Grow the economy, keep materials in their use phase, reduce the carbon footprint. That is one way we're able to do. Here's another one. I think part of an engineer's job, and environmental professional, and really anybody, is to look beyond our walls. What sort of responsibilities, what might we have if we know how to do something, to speak up? So I'm guessing just about everybody here, except for the extremely young people, remember seeing on TV the crude oil gushing up from the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico during the oil spill, and not the professionals and the experts from all around the world not knowing how to stop it. But eventually it happened, and it got stopped, thankfully. But then the eyes were directed to, now how do we clean this up? Well, we had a little bit of experience in our company working with oils. We knew some of the materials that were going into the cleanup materials, like this vehicle part, which is an insulator for the inside of a vehicle. This goes in the door, and it's a sound insulation. It's actually a polypropylene fiber material. And we also knew that scrap from this was sold to the absorbent industry. So we knew what we had. So we got with that company and put a couple more companies together. We went down to the Gulf, and we converted 227 miles of the used oil boom from the Gulf spill. I've got some of that material here, if I can find it here. Some of the actual material that was used to clean up the spill. And that material then was converted into this. What you're looking at here is a part of a Chevy Volt. The part's about that long. I had to fit it into my briefcase, so I cut it. This has 25% content of the used oil boom from the Gulf of Mexico oil spill that was used to clean it up. It's got 25% content of tires, test tires from our Milford, Michigan proving grounds. It's got 25% content of post-consumer plastic bottles, polyethylenes and propylenes. And it's got, tires, test tires, Gulf, caps and plugs. Those caps and plugs, polyethylenes from our Fort Wayne assembly plant, which is a zero-waste plant. 100% recycled content. 2010, 11, and 12 Chevy Volt was made from that material. So here's the cardboard part on the top for the Buick Verano. Some of those caps and plugs going into that Fort Wayne truck and those test tires that I talked about. So these are circular economy, closed loop, going from us to us, but only able to be done because of our suppliers. Here's another one. This is in Detroit. Community outreach. You've probably seen it on our goals. It's very important. Extremely important. What do you do with the parking lot in Mexican Town in Detroit, in a very challenged neighborhood that's not being utilized? Well, sometimes I try solving issues by combining issues. We had them in Orion, our Orion, Michigan plant, where we're doing the Chevy Bolt and Sonic now. Those are steel baskets, they're parts containers coming in from Korea. And we were selling them to the foundry, which is good, right? It's not great. Getting a couple cents a pound. Nice looking containers. What if we took one and we set it on that parking lot? What if we then added this? Some local kids and local families, and we brought in some compost from a young lady entrepreneur startup, Detroit Dirt. Paul, that's Passion's material. This is actually scrap from our Renaissance Center headquarters. We got 15,000 people there a day. That's a zero-waste operation. It's actually so big it's got its own zip code. All the restaurant scraps behind the counter go into that compost. But anyway, we add that, and then we add this. And this is what we've got, these shipping crates. We've got 2,000 of these around Detroit, serving 30 urban farms. For those of you that aren't from Detroit, urban farming is booming in Detroit. It's a great thing because there's a lot of parts of Detroit that don't have good fresh food supplies. And the local families can come in here on Wednesdays and Saturdays and pick this and harvest it and work in the gardens. And a lot of the So, the school kids come. It's just a wonderful program. That particular one, that's called the Cadillac Garden. And the Ideal Group, a good partner of ours, is there. Okay. All right, you're looking at a Chevy Volt battery cover. Chevy Volt battery cover. The most difficult part of the whole battery to recycle. So that's the cover, not the container, part of the battery. It's a cross-link thermoset material called SMC. It's got fiberglass fill in it. Amazingly difficult to recycle. Amazingly difficult. You got to repurpose it. Could burn it for energy. Could do it. We didn't want to do that. So I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I went over there. We wanted to be zero waste at launch. I'm laying there. That's what I look like around the house. I said, okay, I know what I can do with that. I know what I can do with that. And I know what I can do with that. So I took that center section. Well, I took a few pieces to my house, went out to my laboratory, which is my barn. I cut it into 3 pieces. I put the middle section on a tree. 2 weeks later, I had this. You're looking at, who knows? Who said that? Who knows what kind of bird that is? Who out there knows what kind of bird that is? Anybody know? Wood duck. That's right. Very common. They're common because of conservation efforts. That's what they're common. I'll tell you what. These Chevy Volt battery covers work like magnets. This hen was in my backyard. Proud as could be. She had her little clutch eggs in there and hatched out some babies. We've got over 500 of these out around North America. But we're not done there. I was down at Texas A&M, met a guy from Wetlands International, started working with one of his colleagues, scientists from Russia, and said, hey, you got some endangered species or something that you're working on? She said, yeah, we worked out a deal, we visited, I designed a new box, and this is what we had. You're looking at one of the rarest birds on the earth coming out of a Chevy Volt battery cover. It's called a scaly-sided merganser. There's only estimated 2,500 left of these on the earth with her babies, and I'm told by the scientists over there, World Wildlife Fund and Wetlands International, that's the first time in China's history that an artificial nest box was used on waterfowl. Here's a cross-eyed screech owl using one of the boxes. And here's a bat house. And here is some other materials. I showed you that adhesive. There's a bat hanging onto one. Here are some shingles that I've made out of engine control module circuit board trays out of our Kokomo, Indiana plant. Here's the tray, a little adhesive, epoxy actually, and sand. They work perfect on them bat houses. Perfect. And by the way, no recycler wanted the plastic. Okay? I'm going to move on quickly here. Rochester, New York. They wanted to be zero waste. We had to deal with that, so I set up a program. Here it is. Reusing the oil, drawing the water out, recycling everything, sending some to Covanta, a little bit of it. And there's zero waste now. Here's another one. This was last week. Chad, I'll give Chad a plug. Tomorrow he's on the stage here. Chad Prigrack, Living Lands and Waters. I was with him about a week and a half. We pulled these things out of the Ohio River in Cincinnati. This stuff's everywhere. And we've got some pretty good use for these materials. Polystyrene, what do you do with that? Here's what you can do. Artificial rocks. All right? All right. Here is some planter boxes, Chevy Volt battery covers flipped upside down. When you flip them upside down, they become planters. We've made these available to people with disabilities, people with challenges, like elderly who can't work in gardens anymore, or kids and students with disabilities. I had these tested for food grade. They passed. Now they can grow vegetables. So there's a materials marketplace out there the U.S. Business Council processes, and it matches materials outputs and inputs. Not all companies have old people like me that have a network out there around the country. The state of Ohio and Tennessee has implemented, and I think I need to step off the stage because I don't want to take any more of Nelson's time. Okay. All right.
Stay put.
Just leave this here.
Thank you, John.
All right.
What great stories and great examples. Don't go away, John. We've got Q&A for a minute. You can ask your questions on slido.com and enter event code hashtag ISWA 2017, and some of those questions will pop up for us right here. Slido.com, enter event code hashtag ISWA 2017. John, I've while some of the questions are coming in, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
With the hurricane damage to thousands and thousands of cars, we've heard hundreds of thousands of cars in Houston and probably Florida, has General Motors got a plan for how to salvage those, what to do with those damaged cars?
Yeah, we got some things in play right now. One, we've given $1 million to Habitat for Humanity for the housing part of it. We've given $1 million to Red Cross. We also are giving a $1,000 discount for new car purchases, and we're also giving some payment forgiveness, delayed payment forgiveness for delayed people that are in a difficult situation down there. Those are three things on the finance side. We've also offered that materials marketplace I briefly mentioned to the state of Texas, Louisiana. I think we've reached out to Florida through that U.S. Business Council for Sustainable Development so that materials can be exchanged more freer and easier through this cloud-based network of companies that are part of it. And basically what it would mean is anybody in the state could enter materials in there or outside the state. So if a company wanted to donate plywood or foam or fasteners or any kind of building-related material, they could put it in there, and then other people could draw from that. And then you could also take some of the demolition debris that's going to be out there and is accumulating, and that sort of material then can be entered on there, and other people can draw from it as well. So it's a more sophisticated way to exchange materials, so we've offered that up as well. Okay.
Thank you, John. John, there's a program in Detroit that made national news a few years ago with the insulation and the nonprofit giving jobs to folks sewing winter jackets or sleeping bags. Could you tell us a little bit about that program?
Yeah. In fact, if I can go to my slides real quick, I can show it, maybe even better. I don't know if that's possible, but basically it's about these water bottles. I think everybody knows they're all over and they're very convenient. They're all, very, very common. And I was born in the city of Flint. So as you can imagine, they've gone through a lot of water bottles lately. Yeah, so if you back up one more. Okay, so this is called Do Your Part. And I'll do it fairly quick if I could get this advancer. Okay, so we'd been, obviously with our landfill-free program, recycling water bottles was important. But again, it's not about traditional recycling. We want to do better. We want to do more. We want to reach out. We want to touch people's lives. So in this particular case, the generation points of these water bottles are on the left. And then there's more, of course. So a typical OEM like us will set up a program whereby we'll seek out a tier one. That tier one will give them a request for quote, give them a specification, have a get a quote, and then have our purchasing source them. But in this case, we wanted to put the entire program together to target 3 outlets using water bottle related material. So our generation points were here, and we said, okay, a common route for plastics in this country, plastics in general, is to ship them overseas. So we wanted to keep them here. What if we set up a program to take these water bottles after they're baled at those previous locations and get them washed and flaked? Then we'd send them down to the Carolinas, where the fabrics industry is at. And we were able to take them and have that company turn them into a resin, which is at the bottom here of this material. So here, now we got PET resin. Then what if we send it to a company that would extrude them into fibers, small fibers? And then what if we send them to a company who then turned them into a fleece like this? Now we've got something. And what's happening with this material is every time it takes a step, it's growing jobs. It's growing the economy as compared to shipping it overseas and waiting for it to come back into our country and flop into a Walmart. Then we buy it and we use it and we discard it. But in this case, we got a fleece. Let's take that fleece, send it to a company that die cuts it, send it to another company that takes a Chevy Equinox manifold cover, puts it under it as an insulator. Now we're going to send it into our plant. Then what if we took some of that same type material, this, out of Rochester, New York, same type of material that no recycler wants it, but it's polyester fibers, it's great stuff. What if we sent it into Detroit and insulated some challenging homes? Or sent it to Flint for a community outreach program? And then what if we took that same material and made some filters, and as part of a jobs and development training program at Flint, to filter the air inside our plants. This is a small piece. These filters are this big, and they're part of a pre- and post-abatement filter system in our plants, and then we sent it there, and then we went to the empowerment plan. The empowerment plan takes materials like this. Look it up, Veronica Scott. Veronica Scott. You're going to see a picture of her. This helps insulate coats for the homeless, and those coats for the homeless are made by formerly homeless women in Detroit. They're distributed around the country and really around the world. That's what can happen to water bottles. I call this a supply web. It's not a chain. Chains are too simple and they can break. This is a supply web. Paul, I took a little time there, but I wanted to explain that. And we're doing more. We got more options now for this PET material. The key, though, and the trick is to everybody to do their part, get the material to the recyclers. Okay?
John, we've got a couple of questions. First one, what are the important key enablers to transform linear economy to circular economy for developing countries? And how do we include food waste in the circular economy?
Yeah. Show how they drove, linear to circular is really about showing how, again, you can grow jobs, grow the economy. What I've done inside our company is taken best practices from one part of the world and share that very thing with the other part of the world. And what's interesting, too, is there's some areas where the developing countries are actually better at doing certain things than we are. They're better at managing all the materials, whereas we have a tendency sometimes to just either send it to a landfill or send it to an energy application. We use energy application, but it's only 4 to 6% of our total our zero waste program. So those are the sort of things that we want to encourage. Food waste. Our plants now are doing more and more composting. But I would guess that in developing countries, food utilization is at an extremely higher rate than here. So, those are the sort of things that I think we need to learn from them. Yeah.
Okay.
Design for the environment examples? Okay. Yeah, no problem. I mentioned the filtration management for the program, where filtration is a big thing when you're in, an industry like we have. I mean, we have paint systems, we have a lot of emission issues, body shops, we're doing a lot of welding. That SAE thing Paul mentioned in my bio actually won an award for a program I called Filtration Management for the Environment, where I wrote specifications for various filter items such as cartridge filters, which are air cleaning systems that'll catch particulate matter. Rather than using these $100 per filter where we go through 2,500 a year in one plant once and then send them to energy or landfill them, something like that, we have a reuse program, but we had to test for it. We had to write a spec for it. We had to make sure that when we cleaned those through a authorized cleaner that they could come back in and still perform well. That's designed for the environment. Specifications are extremely important in the auto industry and other industries. I work with materials engineers very often so we could design out things like materials of concern or include recycled content. Okay?
John, we've got maybe one more. How about, is your initiative to manage old vehicles or end-of-life vehicles by General Motors, and how do you do it?
Yeah.
And what is the percentage of recycling old car parts?
Yeah. Well, within the United States, I'll start there. Business runs it. The amount of vehicles that are sitting in somebody's back 40 is extremely low. There's money there. That's what we really like to see. Let's turn this into an economic issue so that things get taken care of. There's even nonprofits out there that want your old car. They want your old car because they want the value of it at a minimum to the scrapyard. So end of life is more formally managed in Europe. But what we prefer, though, is entrepreneurs, businesses starting up, finding ways to utilize these materials in a better life. We were talking earlier about, with Brajesh, where you at, Brajesh? Right there, yeah, about remanufacturing. There's salvage yards out there, dismantlers that take these vehicles all apart and they put the parts up on shelves and they make big money, a lot of money. That's why we instituted that project where I talked about we were selling those vehicle parts. We really want these environmental kind of initiatives to be business driven, grow the economy. That's resilience, and that's a sustainable solution compared to some of the other options we see.
Okay. John, thank you for your presentation, excellent examples, and John will be available for meet and greet at the ISWA booth on the third floor after our session today. So thank you, John.
Thanks.